And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Tuesday, December 5th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. With that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about today. So, the first topic of the show, we'll go over last night's game between the Bengals and the Jaguars. The Bengals upsetting the Jaguars 34-31. We'll get into that and what happened in that game. In the second part of the show, we'll talk about the possibility of a non-quarterback winning MVP this year. I'll talk about some of the candidates that could maybe win MVP that aren't quarterbacks. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about the quarterback injuries because last night there was yet another quarterback injury, and we'll get into that when we go over the game from last night. And then in the final part of the show, we'll go through the current standings after Week 13. So that's the rundown for the show today. And I apologize if you could hear in the background, my neighbors are getting work done. Yard work done, so that's why you could hear, some background noise. So anyways, let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about last night's game. And I lost this game in the spread pool. I originally had the Bengals getting the 8.5, and then I switched it, of course. It was a pretty exciting game. It was back and forth all the way. And the Bengals, they got the win in overtime, 34-31. So let's kind of go through it and discuss what transpired in the game. So the Jaguars, they started off the game. The Bengals started off the game. I was actually out for the start of this game, so I missed the beginning of it. So the Bengals, they turned it over on downs. Jake Browning got sacked at the Jacksonville 44 on 4th and 3. Jacksonville took over, and on their first drive, they went down the field, 7 plays, 51 yards, 3 minutes, 49 seconds of time of possession. Christian Kirk actually got hurt on this play, on the first play. Trevor Lawrence completed a 26-yard pass to him, and he actually got hurt on the play, and he was ruled out. So that was a big loss for Jacksonville in the game. But they went right down the field. Travis Etienne scored a rushing touchdown from 4 yards out, and Jacksonville was up 7-0. Then the Bengals missed a field goal. So it kind of looked like, this might not be the Bengals' day here. Then the Jags punted. Then the Bengals went 8 plays, 92 yards, 3 minutes, and 52 seconds of time of possession. They went down the field. And Joe Mixon from 6 yards out scored a touchdown. So that tied the game at 7. Then in the second quarter, the Jags went 10 plays, 75 yards, 6 minutes of time of possession. They went down the field. Trevor Lawrence connected with Evan Ingram from 22 yards out, his first touchdown of the season to put the Jags up 14-7. And then the Bengals on their drive responded with a 12-play, 75-yard drive, 5 minutes, 20 seconds of time of possession. Joe Mixon another rushing touchdown to tie the game at 14, and that was the score at the half. Then to open up the third quarter, the Jags punted. Bengals 3 plays, 84 yards. Jake Browning connected with Jamar Chase for 76 yards. To put them up by 7. Then on the Jags drive, they tied the game. Trevor Lawrence connected with the rookie Washington, who actually had a big game for 14 yards and a touchdown. The first play of the Bengals' next drive, they tried doing that trick play where Browning threw it to Tyler Boyd, and then Boyd threw it back to Mixon, or he tried to throw it back to Mixon. And it ended up getting picked off by Josh Allen. And the Jags took advantage of that. They scored a touchdown on that drive. Trevor Lawrence, on 4th and goal, actually, scored the 1-yard touchdown. So that put them up 28-21. Both teams punted. Then in the fourth quarter, the Bengals, they went down the field. 9 plays, 48 yards, 5 minutes, 16 seconds of time of possession. And Jake Browning had 1-yard rushing touchdown. So that tied the game. Then on this drive, this is where the quarterback injury happened. So the Jags were going down the field. They were driving. And Trevor Lawrence got sacked. And his lineman, stepped on his foot. And he ended up leaving the game with an ankle injury. Now, it looks like it's just an ankle sprain. So that's good that it's not broken. As of right now, they said it's an ankle sprain. So it's to be determined if how much time he's going to miss, if he's going to miss any at all. But he ended up leaving the game because of that, and it's just horrible because it's yet another quarterback injury this year. Hopefully, again, he doesn't miss too much time if he misses any time at all. But it looked like it was worse than it actually turned out being. So. At least that's what it is right now, that he just has an ankle sprain. So then Brandon McManus from 48 yards missed the field goal. Then the Bengals on their next drive, 7 plays, 26 yards, 2.5 minutes of time of possession. They went down the field. Evan McPherson kicked a 54-yard field goal to put them up 31-28. So then C.J. Beathard, remember him? He had to come in. And literally on the first play, he fumbles. He starts scrambling, he fumbles, and Washington, the rookie, picked it up and recovered the fumble, thankfully for the Jaguars at that point. And he was actually holding his wrist, Beathard, after that play. And the Jags didn't have another quarterback active. So now obviously he finished the game, but that would have been terrible if he ended up getting hurt, and then Jacksonville has no quarterback active. So Jags ended up getting into field goal range. He completed a pass for 14 yards to Evan Ingram, then 19 yards to Travis Etienne. And then Brandon McManus from the Cincinnati 22 kicked a 40-yard field goal. And that tied the game at 31. So we go into overtime. Jacksonville punted. And then the Bengals on their drive went 12 plays, 42 yards down the field. And Evan McPherson kicked the game-winning 48-yard field goal. And Cincinnati gets a win. They improved to 6-6, and the Jags dropped to 30. I'm saying their score. They dropped to 8-4 on the season, which is a big loss because like I said, Jacksonville's got to be careful because you got the Colts and the Texans right behind you. I mean, they still they picked up the win against the Texans, last week, but the race is not over by any means. So yeah, that was a big loss for the Jags. And the Bengals, hey, listen, they're 6-6 and they're still in it. And if Jake Browning can play like he did last night, the Bengals got a shot. I mean, he went 32 of 37, 354 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no picks. Joe Mixon ran the ball for 68 yards. Chase Brown actually had 9 carries for 61 yards as well. He had a 31-yard carry late in the game. Bengals ran the ball for 156 yards. And that was something that I said. They're ranked last in terms of rushing yards per game. So, that was big for them. Jamar Chase had a great game, 11 receptions for 149 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, the big play, the 76-yard touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, Jake Browning can play like he – and, listen, if they didn't do that trick play, I mean, you take 7 points off the board for the Jags, they might not even go into overtime. He didn't make any mistakes, Browning. So, that was that was a good performance by him, and that's very encouraging going forward for the Bengals if he can keep that going. So Trevor Lawrence, before he got hurt, he went 22 of 29, 258 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks. C.J. Beathard went 9 for 10 for 63 yards. Travis Etienne was their leading rusher. He had 45 yards rushing and a touchdown. Trevor Lawrence had a rushing touchdown as well. Evan Ingram had 9 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. Zay Jones had 5 for 78. And the rookie Parker Washington, who I talked about before, he had 6 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. Calvin Ridley had 4 for 26. Etienne had 4 for 34. But yeah, that's a big loss for the Jags. And again, hopefully Trevor Lawrence does not miss an extended period of time here. But that's not good for the Jags by any means. So yeah, I'm looking at Sleeper right now. It says Trevor Lawrence may have avoided serious injury. The Jaguars are optimistic that Lawrence may have avoided a serious injury after departing the game. Mike Garafolo of NFL Network reported that. Um, it says he's set to undergo further medical testing Tuesday, so it shouldn't be long before the Jaguars release an official update on the star quarterback. But yeah, it says it's believed that Trevor Lawrence suffered an ankle sprain, but again, more testing is going to be done. Hopefully, hopefully that's what it is, and he doesn't miss, because we'll talk about it later in the show. But these quarterback injuries have just been horrible this year. We're gonna go through all of them, but I keep saying it, every week. I'm like, please, just enough with the injuries. But it's just, again, another week, another big star gets hurt. I mean, and it's not like it was a non-contact injury. It was just his lineman stepped on him. And then, it's just terrible that, that this continues to happen. And especially like for the Jags, because right now, they could possibly get the 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but you don't want to lose your star quarterback, because you got that, and then also, like I said, the division race in the AFC South is close. You still got to play. I think, actually, no, they don't. They already played the Colts twice. I forgot that they played them already in Jacksonville the second time, because I know they opened up the season against the Colts. But yeah, I mean, it's one game separates them and the Texans and the Colts. So, and then as for Jacksonville, when it comes to their schedule, they're at Cleveland next week, which, if you don't have Trevor Lawrence, I mean, the Browns have their quarterback issues, but still, like, you got to go against that defense on the road. That's going to be a tough game. And then you have the Ravens. Then you have the Bucs in Tampa, which I think if Trevor Lawrence is playing, they should win that game. They should beat Carolina at home, and then they should beat Tennessee in Tennessee. So the toughest game left on their schedule is home against the Ravens. But if they don't have Trevor Lawrence against the Browns, like, I don't know if they're going to win that game. But we'll just have to wait and see. And then for the Bengals, I mean, they're still in it. And they play the Colts in Week 14 at home. I mean, if Jake Browning can play like he played against the Jaguars, they could definitely win that game. Then they're home against the Vikings for that Saturday tripleheader. They could win that game. They could definitely win at Pittsburgh. I mean, they only lost to Pittsburgh 16-10. At Kansas City is going to be tough. And then they're home against the Browns. So, I mean, the Bengals aren't out of it, but I don't really see them making it. But, again, if Jake Browning keeps playing like he did yesterday, they got a shot. Because they got a good team. They still have a good team. If they can continue to run the football like they did yesterday, if, you hit Jamar Chase on those big plays, T. Higgins came back, Tyler Boyd obviously is a good number 3. The defense has been a little bit of an issue this year, but this team is still good. And if they could get, not Joe Burrow level quarterback play, but if they can get some decent quarterback play, maybe they can find their way in. But it's going to be tough. So, yeah. So with that is that's basically it when it comes to this segment, though. Again, hopefully, we're hoping for good news when it comes to Trevor Lawrence and that he's not going to miss an extended period of time, but we'll just have to wait and see. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the possibility of a non-quarterback winning NFL MVP this year, because I think there's definitely a case for that. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.